I'm readier than I've ever been.
Oh, you're
Ooh.
having fun. You're loving it. Chat settings. Let's change them.
Did you get some guitar?
Readier than I've ever.
Okay. Let's start.
You get some good guitar tracks, Jake?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know about that yet. Is that we got some cool stuff for that?
Yep.
Sweet.
Just the assignment was done. One of actually a Trey member, reverse engineer.
Right on.
But we'll announce
Hey,
that.
everybody.
We'll announce that shortly. What's up, guys?
What's up, everybody?
Yo.
Morning, everyone.
What up?
Welcome back.
Who still got their Christmas tree up like I do?
I do as well.
Yeah, it's nice.
We have two of them.
Oh,
You have
nice.
two
Even
of them
better.
up still?
We have an upstairs and a downstairs
Wow.
tree. They're both still up.
Just can't let go of the season, huh?
Can't do it. Can't let it go. Can't let go of the magic. Yeah, Matt. Just flexing. Flexing over here with the two trees. Two fake trees that we use every single year. That we've inherited and didn't even buy. Philip, what's up? What's up? Upstate New York. Yeah, baby.
Did everyone do their homework? Did you have homework for them yesterday?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One's in chat if you did the homework. It's a little slower than it should be.
Hey, everyone learns in different ways. It's fine.
Yeah, I used to hate homework.
My daughter, who's 3 years old, the other day, she's, for Christmas, she got one of those. It's like a drawing pad. It's like a magic drawing pad, right? So you can draw on it. It's kind of like not like an etch a sketch, Magna Doodle. Remember Magna Doodle? It's kind of like that, right? So you draw on it, and then you can erase it, and you can draw on it, whatever. And I'll walk into her bedroom. She's sitting in her bed. Oh, hey, baby, what's going on? What are you up to? Go away, Dad. I'm doing homework.
Oh, she's gonna hate.
Okay.
She's gonna
And
hate.
I turned around and walked out.
To this day, I've never had something in my life that I've hated as much as homework.
Oh yeah.
Like looking back now and going like, you had to be in school from 8 o'clock till 3, and then they gave you like 2 hours of homework. Seems absurd. It seems like an absurd way to educate people. Maybe it's just me.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Not for me. I for me it was sitting in classes. Just sitting in a classroom.
Yeah.
That was the
That part
worst thing
too.
I could imagine. You can just not do homework. Well, I guess suppose you can just not go to class either.
There's been a really interesting conversation on ADHD in our TRE community the last few weeks. It's been interesting. A lot of people struggle with that.
After seeing the way that our students learn, and then also after learning some stuff about myself, I found out that the way that I learned most of my life was pretty messed up and probably the wrong way for me to learn things. And I think that that is going to be something that's going to change a lot over the next decade. Is like obviously like what you focus a lot with our students, Caleb, is like how they learn first.
Right.
And watching our students do that has been an eye opener for sure.
Learning how to learn.
Learning how
Yeah,
to learn
learning
is
how
a
to
big
learn.
part of the beginning of the TRE program, but also just specifically teaching ADHD people how to learn,
Actually
Right.
learn how to
how to
yeah, how to
channel that hyperactivity where it needs to be and focus, you have to reconsider your passions. You have to, there's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. You're creative. You're probably ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only know about it because I totally am.
Yeah, I'm OCD, which was a whole other spate of issues.
You did your homework 3 times.
Yeah, I did, and I hated every second of it. Real quick, was everybody able to access the replays for yesterday? One's in chat. Is everybody in the school group? Yes. I'm gonna paste the link here once the chat slows down. If you're not in the school community, the replays from yesterday, the replay for today, replay for tomorrow, all of that is going to be in that school community. It's completely free. The multi-tracks for the sessions are in there. Jake even did a little guitar contest that we ran in there yesterday. So if you're not in the school community, click the link in the chat now. Make sure you join that. That's where we'll have all of our updates, future fix mixes, other challenges we're running. So not to mention there's 20,000 producers in that group that are all chatting every single day. So it's an amazing resource. So again, if you're not in that group, there's the link. Join that community, and I'll make sure I push you through now as those requests come in.
Yeah, if you missed yesterday, you can go back and watch the replay, and you'll want to do that. You can also catch up on your homework if it's something you want to do. It's not like homework. It's just some people like to learn through doing. So take the concepts we taught, try to put them into practice, see if some of it works for your personality, for your workflow. That's what this is all about. And
That's right.
these will be available to you to continue to watch as well. So tons of resource there you can come back to.
And forever. Is that right?
I think we switched to forever now, right, Michael?
Yeah. Yeah, we used to take the replays down, but now we leave them up forever. So
Oh my goodness.
at least until we go
Why?
bankrupt.
Just why? Why would you do that?
If you want them up forever, then keep you know what? Actually, if you want them up forever, share us on socials, tell a friend about us, promote us a little bit, because the only way we do these free challenges is by getting a ton of people on there so we can do partnerships and get people into our flagship program. So if you want to help us out, if you want more stuff like this, please just like tell some friends about us, share our socials at Master&Com, no dot. You would be amazed at how far word of mouth has taken us. And we always really appreciate that. So,
But only if you like it. If you don't like it, don't tell your friends.
yeah, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, don't tell anyone. Well,
Don't tell anyone.
keep it all
Just
to
tell
yourself.
us so we can improve.
Yeah, actually, yes. Feedback
Unless you're just being hurtful, you're not being constructive.
right.
Like
Trolling.
there's nothing Jake can do about his face. So commenting
Yeah.
on that, sending him messages about that isn't useful.
Yeah.
This is what my mom gave me.
It's baked in.
It's baked in. It's been bounced in place.
It's rendered in mono. I don't know what that means.
Me neither. I was waiting for some kind of like elaboration, or it's fine though. We'll go with that.
Jake's face is so beautiful it intimidates me. That's all. Just had to, you hate the things you love.
I like it when Michael shaves into the mustache. It makes me
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
we're part of a secret club.
It's pretty rare, but it does come around every so often. I think I had a mustache for the last fix mix. Didn't I?
You may have. You were just
I look
shooting.
like a creep.
You're shooting like a video or something, right?
Yeah, I don't even remember.
You were making content or something like that.
I don't remember anything.
There was a reason. I asked you about it, and there was a reason.
All right, we're 10 past. Should we get going?
Let's do it.
Yeah, what do you guys think? You guys ready to go? Give me a 702,444 in the chat if you're ready to go. Ready to get started? Nice commas. Wow. I saw like 2 or 3 commas right off the bat. Well done. Yeah, that looks like a go. That looks like
Fix
a
the
go to
Mix,
me.
ready to rock.
Let's
Fix
do
the
it.
Mix Challenge Day 2. If you're back, you wanted some more, we're here to give it to you. It was fun yesterday. I thought it was a lot of good questions. I thought it was a good session. Hope you got a lot out of that. Again, if you missed yesterday, in terms of introductions, my name is Caleb Lovelace, Director of Education for Mastering.com. We have Michael Gilbride, who's the General Manager of Mastering.com, getting you all set up with those sponsorships and emails and text messages and just making everything run. And then we have Jake Codewise here with us today. He's one of the mentors in our program and it manages other mentors. He's a very talented engineer, producer, sync artist in general. Glad to have you. And he's been doing our demonstrations this week. Day one action items. So we sent you the tracks. They're in school. I know some of you were able to download those. Build a new project with the tracks organized properly. Gain stage every track between -10 and -20 dBFS. And you brought all the faders down to -infinity. Volume balance your session to the best of your ability. Only using volume and panning, maybe a sample delay.
Yeah.
If you're Jake, but no plugins allowed. That was the goal for yesterday. How far could we push the mix with our most powerful tool, which is volume? Nothing else. I think that's a really great mindset. I really highly recommend adding that to your workflow. We've trained thousands of engineers over the years, and we found that to be one of the most powerful parts of teaching people how to mix is setting it up the right way from the get-go and using your most powerful tool, which is volume, as well as you can right up front. So don't neglect that one. That one's really important. That's why we spend a whole day on it. So we learned about the power of volume, which allows us to work more intentionally. The whole point of doing it this way and not just doing everything all at once is because we're compartmentalizing our mindset and our process. We're pushing it how far we can with volume, but we're also taking notes of what stuff couldn't be fixed with volume along the way so that today, you notice Jake has a bunch of notes. We'll start with those today and be able to dive right in and have a ton of direction. So we're not only more intentional with the way we're using volume yesterday to mix, we're more intentional today when we get into the more finer details of things where we have to use EQ, compression, different spatial effects and things. We could be so much more directed now instead of feeling a little lost when we go into a session with tons and tons of tracks. Where do I start? What do I need EQs on? You start throwing EQs and compressors on everything, and all of a sudden you're in the weeds and you're not very focused. So tons of intention, and all of this will speed up your process. One of the things, especially with intermediate people that we work with, if they're kind of stuck at an intermediate plateau, uh, one of the major things that needs to change is just their speed in which they work. So much of this is staying objective through the whole process, keeping fresh ears. And the more you can refine your tools, you can refine your ears, you can compartmentalize different things, the more efficient you can work and you can speed up everything. And then you're in that creative kind of and also objective mindset for the whole time that you're working, and your work just comes out better. It's also a great way to work if you want to make it a profitable business. You just need to be able to work more quickly. So all of it's pushing you towards efficiency and precision. And then we also got into the mastering mindset at the end of the session yesterday. If you guys didn't make it to the end for some reason, yesterday we talked about some mastering tools that you can use to help you in the mix. When we teach our students in the program, we teach them mastering first because it gives you a snapshot, an interesting snapshot of all the mistakes that were made through the entire process that are hard to fix in mastering that would hold a master back from becoming great. You get a really clear vision of that when you apply that final limiter and turn everything up. From every mistake and every beautiful thing that was done from the very first time someone presses play or presses record all the way through production, all the way through mixing. And it's a way to work backwards to teach yourself the process. We learned yesterday about a frequency analyzer. It's something you can use on your mix to know if you're in the ballpark of balance. We talked about balance of frequencies. if you missed all that. Worth going back and watching. It was towards the end of yesterday. So goals for today: to better understand when and why to control frequencies, to better understand when and why to control dynamics. We're going to get into spatial processing, maybe, Jake, if there is any to do.
Yeah. Well,
We'll
we'll
definitely do
we'll have
some
to wait and
tomorrow, but
see.
we might see some of that today if it's needed. And then we'll also teach you some more mastery mindset, another tool that you can use in your mix to reverse engineer the whole process for yourself. So we're going to dive into all this. Before we get into the demonstration today, I'm going to give you one touch point on each of these that you can kind of take as a big picture concept to focus on. These are some of the main problems we see when we're teaching students that hold them back from success within frequencies, dynamics, and spatial processing. So today's all about the instrumentals, though. Vocal day is tomorrow. Tomorrow's about all the vocals, so we're only focusing on the instrumentals today. All right, let me give you these high-level concepts. The problem that is masking. If you don't know what masking it is, it's where you have different instruments in your mix, or vocals or different things in your mix, competing for frequencies. Happens a lot in the mids. It can happen in the upper range for sure, in the lower range. The relationship between the kick and bass, for example, can be one of those. When you have a few instruments, for example, I just gave a very kind of like simple example here, but let's pretend we had a synth, two synths, and a guitar that are all kind of competing for energy in that mid range. You can see where they're overlapping. If it's maybe two of them overlapping, it might cause some masking. If it's all three of them overlapping, you have a higher, and it could be 5 or 6 or 10 things that are all competing in a real mix with 100 tracks. It could be many things doing this. But that area where they're overlapping is what are causing these masking issues. It's a buildup of frequencies that's it's causing a lack of definition and a imbalance in frequencies. And if you watched the end of yesterday, you understand why balance in a mix is so important. So we need to alleviate these. And I know a lot of people really struggle. They feel like they're doing this, they're trying to clear out the space, but for some reason it's still sounding muddy or different things when they check in the car or on different speakers. So let's really address this today. Let me dive into this a little bit more. So you notice on that last one, you had them all overlapping. The goal with masking is pretty simple. You need to clear out space and have them overlap less. It's not rocket science. How we do this can be a little bit of finesse. So we need to understand it, but really all we're doing is finding the best parts of each of those sounds, the most important pieces. Let's pretend synth 1 is really carrying that range. That's where it's really filling out, and it's adding something really beautiful there, and the guitar's adding something really great there. But we love the top end of synth 2, and that's really, it doesn't need the low end. It really just needs that sparkle. It's more of a upper mids type of a synth that is really important there. We make those choices. We listen to all these different instruments, and we make choices. Where's the most important parts of this? What can I get rid of that isn't really that important? Seems simple enough. We're making space. But it can, where I think most people get tripped up is that it gets a little scary when we look at them each individually on their own. So we get the concept of clearing out space between the three different instruments, but then when we solo it and we start applying an EQ, instantly we're freaked out because to create that dot compared to the dot I originally had, on its own, that guitar sounds not good. It's sounding kind of weird. It's not sounding like we intended. And we go, oh, I'm scared, so I pull the EQ back. I don't do as much. And all of a sudden I didn't fix the problem. But that was only my perception that was the problem because I was thinking locally and not globally. What does it mean to think globally? Well, what we need to realize is that when we have all the frequencies accounted for, okay, if we go back to this slide, I have all the frequencies accounted for within that range. And what we need to understand about what happens psychoacoustically for the listener is that most of the time, to some degree at very least, if all of those frequencies are accounted for by something of a similar style, especially the ear hears it as if all of those individual elements are kind of as they should be, as whole. There's a balance to find there, and you can make it so even if you make those more extreme cuts to carve out the space, when you look at it globally, when you step back and listen to them together, they actually sound okay. So what the ear hears and what that slide was, instead of that, it's hearing this because of that psychoacoustic trick. So the key is most of the time you need to be a little bit more aggressive, not get freaked out when you look at it more locally, when you solo it and start making those moves. We don't care how it sounds in and of itself. We care how it sounds when everything's in there together. And you don't want to lose that perspective. And I think that's why a lot of people do. They get a little freaked out when they're making those moves. And we've seen this on other Fix the Mixes where Jake will do some of this work, and on its own, that piece, we'll even see comments that are like, oh no, that piece is sounding not good anymore. What are you doing? And then all of a sudden, when he plays it all together, it's like, sounds great, because the ear fills in the gaps for all that information that's actually not there because it's being taken care of by other instruments in those frequency ranges that we cut out. Does that make sense to everybody? One's in chat if that makes some sense to everybody. Any questions on that? Jake, if you want to field any questions people have on that.
Yeah, only one thing I might add here is that there's always going to be masking.
Sure.
There's always going to be some masking, and I mean that's just the nature of sounds.
Yeah.
Sitting in the
Go back to here.
spectrum, right? It's not necessarily about eliminating frequencies. It's about managing them and distributing them
That's right.
in the right way, right? Or it's not about eliminating masking. It's about managing it
Yeah.
To a very intentional end goal or end result.
That's right. You'll never get rid of all of it. There are going to be frequencies that build up together, and that's why on this slide there's still some overlap. But you just have to carve it out enough to where it's actually balanced. Any other questions in the chat or anything?
What if an instrument you cut has a solo part?
Oh yeah, well if it's solo, it's not going to be masking.
Right. It's not going to be an issue.
And if there are other instruments while it's soloing, then you have to consider, and that's I think part of what I was saying before, which is like there are important parts of each of those sounds. And if it's a solo, it's even more important that is more kind of like made room for. I might pull the instruments back even at that point and push one forward, which eliminates some masking. But yeah, you consider that for sure.
Can panning overcome masking issues? Excuse me, masking issues.
Yes, panning is part of it. So as you spread things out, and you notice Jake did some of that yesterday when he was spreading those harmonies out from the center, all that buildup in the mid-range and the center suddenly wasn't, you could hear everything a lot better because that had been pushed to the sides.
So I have an arrangement where the rhythm guitar masks the lead guitar. Push the lead guitar through a different amp. I mean, that's what I would do anyway. Yeah. You can handle it with EQ, but if the lead's already not through like a different amp or played with a different guitar, I'd actually go back to that portion of the production or recording if you can, and like reamp it.
Yeah, good
so
call.
that it's differently tonally. Yeah.
Cool. Well, and we'll get into some of that today. We have a lot to clear up actually today, so we'll get a demonstration on that principle. But usually the key is be more brave than you think you need to, keep things in a global perspective, and use your ears. The next thing we'll talk about is clipping and limiting for dynamic control as opposed to always using compressors, something Jake's really, really good at. Most of the time we grab or reach for compressors when we're trying to, instigate dynamic control. Jake, you'll see today, uses a lot more clippers and limiters, and I think it's a really great move. You'll find that clippers and limiters are simpler to use if it's just controlling dynamics. If we're just trying to limit dynamic range, clippers and limiters will actually get you there a lot faster and do a better job of it. So Jake, most of the time when he's trying to just control dynamics, he's always reaching for a clipper or a limiter. It's usually one or two knobs and it gets you there a lot quicker. And he'll show you about that today. Why does he use compressors then? Well, if there's something that's more nuanced, he might reach for a compressor. If it really has some tricky kind of dynamics that need the options that come with a compressor, it's pretty rare for that. Most of the time it's a clipper or limiter. And most of the time when he reaches for a compressor, it's to enhance, to, for example, give a kick more punch or something, or a snare more girth or something like that. You can use compressors for that, and you'll find that Jake most of the time uses compressors for that. So we'll get a demonstration of that today. Really cool, and you can start implementing clippers and limiters into your process if you so choose. And then we'll talk about spatial processing, and we're going to give you a kind of a formula to use for your spatial processing, a bit of a template to use that kind of allows you to have the right mindset. I think a lot of people get spatial processing wrong. I even noticed someone in the chat yesterday said, man, I would have already thrown a bunch of reverb on all of this. And it's such a natural tendency that when you're hearing problems, we know how nice spatial processing is to problems. It kind of just smooths everything over. And often used too early in the process. I tend to do all my spatial stuff very last because I want to fix everything the right way first, not just cover it up with spatial. And so what tends to happen is it's used too aggressively to cover up problems, and then all of a sudden it sounds amateurish because, well, you've heard those mixes where it's just sounding washy and there's no clarity. Whereas if you listen to really well mixed music, unless it's intentional, it's usually used more sparingly and done in the right way. So what we want to help you get to is, what does it mean to do it more naturally and get it done in the right way? And what can we do to make it consistent with the emotional scene? A lot of people don't consider that the reverb or the delay that they're using is causing emotion. There's a lot of emotion in space. And there's some spaces that just don't match the vibe of the song. It's a real thing. I hear it all the time where there's space on there, but it just is totally disconnected from the emotion of the track. And it's something a lot of people don't think about. We should keep in mind as we're doing it how related, how emotional space is and how much it can affect things. It's a big emotional enhancer within our mixes, and we can't just use it again too aggressively, or there are definitely ways in doing it the wrong way in terms of emotion. One of the things we're going to talk about today, though, and a real core point, is using spatial processing in a way that's diverse enough, but not too diverse. So what I hear a lot of times with people's spatial processing is they use one reverb maybe, or maybe two, for the whole mix. And what tends to happen when you have that is just everything sounds, unless it's intentional, there are times to do that, but most of the time it's not the right move because it's making everything sounding too one note. There's no depth or like separation within anything. It sounds like they're playing in a room together. And unless that's what you're going for, that's not what, you know, that's not what good production is all about. Or they use too many, and then everything feels a little bit chaotic and too disconnected from all the other elements. The right way to use spatial processing is just enough to where things have separation, but not too much. That's the balance that we're looking for. Spatial processing can create that separation. When we talk about separation in a mix between the different elements, that's how we can create that. You don't want too little or too much diversity there. You want the happy medium. So the formula that we're going to teach you today is the sweet spot, we think, for just enough diversity so you get that that separation within the sounds, but it's not done in such a way where it's too much or too little. So we'll watch Jake do that. It's more, obviously that's more for the demonstration, but that's what we're trying to accomplish. You should understand what we're trying to accomplish there. All right, that's all for me. Keep those three thoughts in mind as we go forward today. And we'll hand it over to Jake.
Thank you, Caleb.
You're welcome, my man.
What do you guys think? Want to jump into this thing? Give me a 42 if you're ready to go.
Good easy number. I'll be right back.
The meaning of life. Sweet. Yeah, gonna announce the winner here for the guitar challenge also. It was funny because somebody was asking like early on in this call. I think it was Matt was asking early on in this call, you know, who won the guitar challenge, guitar competition. It was actually you, Matt. So congratulations, Matt Mendoza, everybody. All right. Nice clap emojis. Clap emojis in the chat for Matt. Getting that t-shirt. Is it clap, clap, clap? Where's my clap emoji? Hold on. I'm gonna put mine in there too. Clap, clap, clap. Boom. Yeah, nice job, man. Good job on this. Check them out, guys. Versus the originals. Yep, killed it. Really, really crisp, clean, polished recording. This is exactly what I would want for a track like this. Straightforward. Matt did go above and beyond with a few extra tracks that I actually didn't pull into the session. Just gonna kind of like stick to the original arrangement here, but I'm sure they're awesome. I didn't even check them out yet, Matt. I'll take a look though. Thanks for going above and beyond. Oh yeah, can you guys hear that? You guys hear it okay? I didn't even check for audio. Okay, ones? Yeah, okay, cool. Listen to these clean tracks, man. These are great. Great job. I'm gonna hit you up when I need other acoustic tracks. Right, so it sounds like these originals, I mean, aside from the tuning, these are bar chords. And it sounds like you use some open tuning on this. Either that or you're just like, you've got robotic fingers, because that sounds super clean and super open to me. You know, there is a slight difference here in the part, right? There's gaps in this acoustic guitar. We can always create those gaps artificially if we need to in terms of muting. And I think the strum pattern is just slightly different to match the things that are going on in the arrangement, which I was totally okay with. Then we've got this. So if we listen to this in context,
that keeps us wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrise.
it's following the natural kind of rhythm and the natural groove of everything, right? Strum pattern just it makes more sense for the song rhythmically. So we're keeping that.
How it's only 30,000 sunrises.
And I haven't processed these at all, guys. This is completely just volume. I mean, Matt did a phenomenal job of just recording this guitar. You know, I wouldn't even touch these. Quick question, Matt. This is super consistent. Did you go through some outboard here? Did you go through like some compressor or preamps or anything like that? I've seen your space. Wait to see. Yeah, secret sauce. Yeah. Oh, no gear. But you did comp something. Okay. Nice. Well, sounds great, dude. Sounds awesome. Really, really well. I have Brian says I go straight in with acoustic. Do you mean like DI? DI, yeah. I have opinions about like DI guitars. I like the natural kind of sounding, the natural sound of miking an acoustic guitar. I've never just like really been about the DIs. Now I know a lot of engineers who actually will layer DIs underneath a mic'd acoustic guitar for additional like definition on some of the like just to create a little bit more attack sometimes, right? But I really, really appreciate the sound of like just an open mic'd acoustic guitar in a room, you know? I mean, just think about it. When you're listening to somebody playing acoustic guitar, you're typically just like in a room. Right. And I like that sound. I just like that natural open sound. I don't like the sound of it kind of like pushing through an amp. But that's just my, you know, it's just taste. It's just subjective opinion. Well, everybody's gonna fall somewhere different on that scale, right? Well done, Matt. Love these. We're gonna work with these today. So good job. Do me a favor, dude. Just DM me your t-shirt size. And I'll hook you up. This is great. So let's take a listen, guys. Let's take a listen to what we got here so far. Maybe just an intro through the chorus, just to kind of refresh and see where we're at.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future, hey. About the sinking feeling in our hearts, hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories lose, but lose some truth. But it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, it's only time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering. Lately I've been spending extra time praying, hey, about the condition of this human heart, hey, hey. We can all look around and see there's something so wrong, something going on that keeps us wondering How it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, it's all the time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering.
Yeah, so for now, I'm just gonna slap a limiter on these vocals.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories loose, the blues.
Just so it's not like dipping in and out of the mix right now while we're working on the instruments. Keep it nice and kind of like consistent. And then tomorrow, when we do the actual work on the vocals, we'll remove that limiter, and we'll just kind of do all kinds of trickery to it to get to sit where it needs to sit. Right.
Some truth that keeps me wondering. How it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, it's all the time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering.
Cool. Me likey.
I didn't.
big-
Sorry, I had to bail for a second. Who did the guitars?
Matt Mendoza.
Oh, good job, Matt. Sound great.
I sound good. Man,
Of course, you killed it.
yeah, right.
You're great at that. Good job, man.
Yeah, nailed it. Yeah, biggest issue here is like low mids. Low mids, like 250 to 500, just real muddy in that area. Taking up way too much space for me. So let's take a look at what we got in terms of referencing. We'll pull up a few references. I'm going to add some. Add some reference tracks here. Just do some pop tracks. And I'm not gonna like think about them too hard. Yeah, I'm even gonna do some female singers. We got a main reference here.
Stories loose, the blues sunrises. How it's only 30,000 sunrises. Yeah, I already know how to be peace without it. If I let you, it's all the time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched.
Cool. Yeah, not too far off in terms of instrumentation. You know, I will start off by just kind of like addressing the low end of the kick drum.
How it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it.
And I'm gonna filter out everything from like 30 hertz and below. I'm just gonna like start a slope here. Just kind of like preserve that space, you know, save the sonic energy in that space so there isn't so much buildup. And when we get to the mastering portion of the process, you know, all that stuff that you can't really hear down there, that can really kind of like trigger any dynamics processing. So we're just kind of like scooping all that stuff out, thinking about what we're going to do in terms of dynamics processing later on down the line, and preventing kind of like a pumping effect or any kind of artifacts. And that's really going to allow us to push the volume much louder also. You know, loudness potential starts in the mix. It all starts with what you do in the mix, right? So kind of considering that kind of stuff and approaching this with a little bit of a mastering mindset there.
Now it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time I won't be.
So much smoother to listen to already, right? Like even without listening to the reference, like bringing down a lot of that low end, it's cleared up space for everything else, just everything else to be much more present in the mix. Here, listen again. We're just gonna turn this on and off.
Now it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time I won't be. The Lord just might touch the ceiling.
Starting to think about the kick and snare relationship here too, right? Like there's kind of a delicate dance and a back and forth to be had with a kick and a snare. And if one is way out of whack, then the other seems really, really weak, or vice versa, right? So if you have a snare that's just like, just punching you in the nose at 200 and a kick that's like super, super wimpy, like, okay, it's just kind of weird. It would never be like that in real life, right? So are there situations and scenarios where you might want that? Well, maybe maybe you've got a very specific goal, or maybe it's like an intentional effect that you're trying to create, or I don't know, maybe it could be any creative reason, right? But I think most of the time, I'm speaking in just kind of like ballpark generalities here. There's like a balance to be had there. You know, you want to get punched in the gut, similar to the way you get punched in the chest, right? We got kick, gut, gut, chest, gut, gut, chest, right? Kick, kick, snare, kick, kick, snare. So I like to bring those a little bit closer, and that's what we've done here now, right? Snare kick, much closer in terms of impact.
Now it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be peace without.
Cool. And if we compare that to our reference track,
Now it's only 30,000 sunrises. You already know what distance can do. Oh.
we're actually still got like a higher low end from our kick, but I think that's fine. Honestly, I think it's still in the ballpark. If we check some of these other references, if we bring in some hip hop references too, you're going to notice that the low end it's kind of a little bit more jacked.
Now it's only 30,000 sunrises. I got peace without.
Right? So we've got a Post Malone Weekend track here where the low end is a lot more prominent, right? So this is why I like to use multiple references. I think this is a really good discussion point. This is why I like to use multiple references, right? Because it gives you more of a range to work within rather than it being more of a precision kind of game. And I think it's just mentally healthier to think about things in terms of ballpark when it comes to this, because it very much is like art, creativity. There's subjective side to things, but there are kind of like objective boundaries that you want to give yourself and stay within. So it kind of just like relieves the pressure. You know, how many times have you felt like, oh, I can't get this mix sounding exactly like my reference track, right? You don't have to. That's not the point. The point is for you to get in a ballpark so it doesn't sound out of place in a playlist. Right? Make sense? Guys, are you following with me? Following me here?
You have to use your imagination a little bit with the references. We're not comparing a mastered track to a master track, right? So a little bit you have to use your imagination.
Cool. I'm talking a lot. I'll get back to cooking here.
I ain't gonna keep my distance from you. Yeah, I know it's gonna be peace.
Cool. Bringing up the high end on that vocal is gonna just fill out our high end. That's gonna be the balance that we need for this track. It's like it's all gonna come down to that vocal. That's the big difference I'm kind of hearing between this and the reference tracks. You know.
Keep my sunrise. Yeah, I know it's gonna be peace.
There's probably some other areas that we can kind of touch here in the high end, but most of that's going to come from the vocals. So there's that. Got some low end, kind of dialed in. We might adjust that a little bit. Maybe we just kind of knock out some of these little notes here. Synth crunch, masking the vocals. We're going to get to that. I think I want to just knock out some of the really easy ones. This price wheel. It's jammed right up the center, which is kind of disorienting. So I'm going to just use a sample delay on that. Spread it out. Right. So when it's in mono, it's kind of like you can hear the clutter that's going on here in the mix. Check it out. Right when it kind of comes in, there's a lot of stuff that just like blast in right in the center, and it's disorienting. You don't know what to kind of pay attention to, what to listen to. Right. So once we turn the sample delay on, you're going to notice that is spread out to the sides, and everything seems to be a little bit more focused. You
This
know,
is
we
kind of-
both-
This is
ahead.
kind of the point someone made earlier, which is like, can you use panning, this essentially widening to clear out space in different areas instead of just EQ?
No.
Lele.
Yeah, I mean, is there risk of phase cancellation? Let's check. Let's see if it's something that. Man, I have like a mono button here on my monitor controller, but just so you guys can hear exactly what I'm hearing. If you ever wanted to check your mix in mono, you can just add a gain plugin with a mono button on it. So, listen. Not to any amount that I'm not comfortable with. You could do that, Boyd. You can mix mostly mono and pan toward the end if you want. I don't do it anymore. I used to. I used to do it like earlier on. I don't know. I just don't do it anymore.
I think in a modern era, the reason to check mono is because a lot of people have those mono Bluetooth speakers. But I'm also under the opinion that if you have a mono Bluetooth speaker, you deserve to not hear good music. So I don't really care.
I love that.
That's a joke, but that's really the reason to do it is just to hear it. You could just check it at the end once to hear kind of.
For me, I'm just not willing to sacrifice the the things that I would do, like the quality or immersive nature of a stereo mix, simply for mono compatibility. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to make those kind of sacrifices and make those kind of compromises, right? If it's an issue, then if it's an obvious issue, then there needs to be a little give, right? But majority of the time, I don't want to sacrifice the beauty of the width and the depth of the mix, just so it can be enjoyed in a mono from a mono source.
You go hiking and there's some dude with his mono speaker and inside his backpack, and he's just jamming out to this underwater beat mindlessly. Just like,
Bro, I'm not mixing for that.
not mixing for you, bro.
I'm not mixing for that. If you're mixing for that, like, and your music or client's music gets put onto a Spotify playlist, it's it's gonna stand out like a sore thumb, Anyway, just my 2 cents on it. There's opinions.
I derailed us. Sorry.
Everybody's got opinions,
It doesn't matter. Do whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is mono good for? It's good for checking a particularly difficult masking situation. So if you've got like a really, really tough relationship going on, it might be helpful to collapse the mix into mono to help decipher, okay, where's this instrument going to sit? Where's this instrument going to sit? Where's the competition happening? How can I get this thing to really kind of come through? But it's been a while since I've actually had to do something like that. Usually you can either reamp something or you can just kind of think about a different instrument or think about changing the arrangement, and that's usually a better option for the song, in my experience. Again, just like my opinions here. Anywho, let's keep going. Well, we put a nice sample delay on that price wheel to kind of give us some width and declutter the center of the mix. I've got some notes here for the vocals. That's all I really have notes on, though. I mean, I've got the synth crunch happening, masking the vocals. I'm going to leave this note here and kind of come back to that on day 3 when we work with vocals to see if it's actually a problem. Because when we get to the vocals on day 3, we all know, we're going to be pumping up the high end on those vocals. So the masking situation may resolve itself once we add more of that upper mid frequency content or more of that high frequency content, and may no longer be an issue. The vocal might just kind of like cut right through the mix nicely. So I'm going to leave this for now. I'm going to leave the synth crunch for now. It's just going to be what it is. And I had this note here when we listened earlier. Cool. Let's go for this verb on the harmonics. Harmonic. Remember there was this cool like reverb effect? I kind of wanted to replicate that. I think it's a good idea. I think there's probably, some opportunity for like different reverb choice here. But giving that some space and giving that some dimension, I think will be pretty cool because it's a really cool part. And we can add reverb as like an insert directly on the track. But I'm going to take this as an opportunity to kind of teach you our starting point kind of method for applying reverb to a mix. As long as you guys are cool with that. You guys cool with that? You with me?
Get the bucket.
Yeah.
If anyone gets that reference, I'll be thrilled.
Better get a bucket.
Get the bucket. Do you know it, Jake?
I know it.
You know it? Oh, you beautiful man. Yeah, Paul.
There it
got
is. Paul got it.
Good job. Yeah, Vanessa.
Better get a bucket. I'm going to throw up.
That's a throwback.
No. Paul, I think that's now for something completely different. It could be meaning of life.
I can't remember.
It is meaning of life? It is meaning of life.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're all beautiful people. Look at all of
Yeah,
you.
look at that. The
Wonderful
end of meaning
folks.
of life.
We're in good
Okay.
company, Jake. We're in good company.
Okay, good. All right. All right.
Let's do it.
So we bust our reverbs here at mastering.com. Not always, but most of the time. We bust our reverbs. So we use aux tracks. We use buses and sends and aux tracks so that we can send multiple instruments to a single reverb. Right? It helps to split processing power, keep the CPU power down. And it's just kind of like an efficiency thing, right? So you don't have to do it this way. This is just the way that we've found to be kind of like a sweet spot. So what we like to do is call this the 3 buckets method for applying reverb. And most mixes can be broken down to 3 elements. 3 categories, I should say. Drums and percussion, vocals, and everything else. I'll call this instruments. So what we like to do is create aux tracks for each one of these groups. A short reverb and a long reverb to be shared with drums and percussion.
As a bus. Post plugins. Yep.
Vocals will do their own wet effects. Long reverb, short reverb. What I like to do is actually add a short delay and a long delay. To vocals as well.
No, Jedediah. 2 buses. A bus for each of these.
Yeah. Yeah, each of these is its own aux track with its own, with its own.
No, not
Bus,
the
if
same
you
type of
will.
reverb. We find the emotional, something that fits emotionally and spatially and just sounds great for each of these in their own use cases.
And you'll just start by picking different reverbs and different delays for each one of these. I'm going to show you all this stuff, guys.
Yeah. We're not sending everything to these either. It's just if you want to use them, you have them. Some stuff already has reverb baked in,
Yeah.
for example. So we'll show you.
I'm going to show you all this stuff. Hold your questions for now. This is the setup though, right? This is like the routing. So we get the routing here. We get all this stuff set up and we use these for our main reverbs throughout the mix. All right. I'm going to show you what this looks like right now.
I'm usually pretty anti-template, but if you wanted to have these in a mixed template, that would be fine.
This is the only thing I use in a template. Here it is. Here are my wet effects. I had them hidden, so you guys didn't have to wait through like the routing process here. And here they are. Here are my wet effects. Drum, short reverb. Drum, long reverb. Right? Short verb, long verb. Perfect. We'll skip over to instruments. I've got my instrument, short verb, instrument, long reverb. And then here's my vocal bucket right here. Vocal, short reverbs, long reverb, short delay, long delay. Right? A little bit easier to wrap your brain around when I'm like showing this to you in the DAW. Is this making sense? And I've got all of these just kind of grouped together and organized into one bus, one track stack, you know, just for organizational purposes. Do you put bass with drums or instruments? I can't really tell you the last time I put any reverb on a bass.
Yeah,
be
it's not very
honest.
common.
You know, unless it's like a future bass or an EDM track and there's already reverb kind of baked into the patch, or I've done reverb as a part of sound design. It's not really typical for me personally to put reverb on a bass. But bass would go, if I did, it would go into the instruments bucket. The answer to that is no, Izzy. Do I group kick drum with bass? No. I group kick with the rest of the drums. How about a whole drum track? How do you separate different parts of the drum? That's a different conversation. You can apply reverb to each piece of the kit if you like. How should reverb be done for an orchestra composition? Typically reverb's already kind of like baked into your sounds, you know, VSTs and stuff like that. So I wouldn't really.
Yeah, live they're gonna, and if they do it live, they'll probably have a big room. Yeah, it's gonna sound natural. There's a difference, really. I might not even use this method if I was mixing something to sound live. Orchestra is often meant to be sound more live, and there are situations where most of the time with nicely produced stuff, you're actually not looking for a live sound. You're looking for a produced sound. And but if it was a situation where you're going for a live sound, I probably wouldn't use this method. Yeah, live twice. You're usually not going to reverb that stuff. Reverbing basses is a recipe for disaster a lot of times. It's so much information. In fact, most of the time I'm trying to narrow my bass. I want to mono it a lot of time. I want it right in the middle. Just be in the foundation of everything, not everywhere, taking up tons of space.
Yeah. Yeah, I can show you these reverbs too. I mean, for my short, I start with about 900 millisecond. It's just a chamber reverb. I think the important thing as I'm kind of showing you this stuff, guys, the important thing to take away here is that like these are my go-to just reverbs that I start with. And if it doesn't sound right in the mix, I'll just change this. I'll just experiment with some presets until it sounds right in the mix, right? So I think the important takeaway here is just start somewhere, you know, maybe 500-ish milliseconds on decay time for your short reverbs and a 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds on your longs. Just make sure they're different types. That's it. So I've just got a chamber on this for my short drum. My long drum, I've got a snare plate, just a plate. The preset name is snare plate, but it's just a plate reverb at 2 seconds long. There's no science behind this. This is just like, this is just me randomly picking stuff until I fell in love with it. So like it's again, there's really no science here. 500 millisecond room delay, room reverb for my instrument shorts. Instrument long is a 2-second hall. Short reverb on vocal. This is a room reverb, about 600 milliseconds. 1.5 second plate reverb for my long. For my vocal short delay, 16th note delay. And then for my vocal long delay, it's a 1/4 note delay. I might change all of this stuff as we kind of like go through the mix. Depends. Just depends. Depends on what the song calls for. Depends on kind of like what I'm feeling. Does it fit? Does it not fit? Does it vibe? We shall see. So that's the method. Let's start to use it with this harmonic instrument. Just going to go ahead and do some routing here. I'm going to use our instrument short reverb. Hear that? Right, some width, some depth. Let's listen to a longer verb. Right. So we've got a couple different options there. Let's kind of dial this in the mix and see which one fits.
About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey, lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories moves, the blues and true, but it keeps me wondering. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories moves, the blues and true, but it keeps me wondering.
So I'm leaning towards this room reverb.
Oh, I was totally leaning the other way.
Oh yeah. I wasn't crazy about
You're gonna EQ the short, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I'll
thought
probably like it then.
Yeah, I thought the definition was starting to get lost. With the long kind of like gooey reverb, the longer decay time. So
Probably
we're
'cause
gonna
I'm in
do,
headphones and you're in speakers.
yeah,
Sounds
yeah,
different in headphones.
yeah.
Hey, hey, lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put EQ after the reverb on the aux track, and just kind of scoop out some of that higher end frequency content that's making it sound pretty bright. Just kind of getting it into a sweet spot.
About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey, lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories.
So it gives it that space without making it sound like it's in a bathroom, basically.
Hey, hey, lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories moves.
Hear the difference? Just that one instrument, how that one instrument can take a mix and go like this. Just pull it out. One instrument. Wild, right? Audio. Fascinating.
Hey, lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories lose, the blues are true. But it keeps me wondering.
I'll turn off the vocal so you can really hear what's going on. Check this out. It's just like a square. It was just a flat two-dimensional square versus a 3D cube. Hear that?
What's cool about reverb is that reverb tends to give everything space a little bit. Even if you're only affecting one thing, it gives the whole mix space. Something to keep in mind too when we're choosing to apply reverbs to stuff. You may not need it on everything because sometimes it can sound like it's already there.
Yeah, a lot of times like one or two like key elements, just some reverb on a couple things can just take the mix and just go whoop, just blow the whole thing out and make the whole mix sound huge, you know? It's weird.
Yep.
Wild. Fun.
Music's fun.
Music is fun. We have fun here. Fun with reverb. I'm gonna start a series. That's it. Verb on harmonics. Boom. Delete. Item off the list. Now, when we come back from our 5-minute break, the real work begins. We're going to start to clean up this 250 to 500 hertz area here. We're going to clean up the mid-range on this mix. Before we hit the 5 minutes on the clock, on the timer, are there any questions? Any quick questions we can help answer at this point? Stephen, I don't use the shadow system. I never have. But it's also not a bad system. I just don't use it.
There are times to duck reverb, especially on a vocal. If you want the vocal to clean up a little bit, if it's just getting a little too washed, but you want bigger tails, then sidechain it back to the vocal and compress it.
Are we adding more reverb in today as well? Maybe. Maybe not. A lot of this stuff already has reverb attached to it, like baked into it. So, you know, I'm a little wary of just like stacking a whole bunch of reverb up because it can kill all the definition. But we might. Who knows? We'll keep going. Stock reverb or any recommendations? Stock reverb is fine. Like most DAWs have incredible sounding stock reverb. You know, I know albums have been like phenomenal albums have been done with stock reverbs. Cubase, you know, Cubase reverbs. Anyway. Using a bus, Rob, I would just kind of like note that down to YouTube or Google later. Is the EQ for reverb? Yes, I did EQ the reverb. How do you know where to draw the line and not get stuck in this phase? Referencing.
Just, yeah, and if you've solved a lot of problems before you do this phase, you won't feel the needs to do as much. And you can just be really intentional. What stuff really needs it? What stuff doesn't? You notice he's like used one. And sure, there's some stuff that already has it baked in, but it's really easy to think, oh, I got to start putting reverb on everything just because you don't.
Yeah, typically I'll do like, so this question is, might need some clarity on this one. EQ and comp before reverb or ... Yeah, typically,
do.
typically you want to like clean things up first, right? Because if you're just piling reverb on top of something that still needs to be carved out, you're just going to create more frequency buildup with the offending frequencies, right? So typically, like most of the time, you want to EQ that. I don't really hear any issues here in this section. You guys know I like to mix in sections kind of like chronologically through. I think all the issues kind of start to happen when we hit this first chorus in terms of like the 250 to 500 range, like all that frequency stuff. That's really where we're going to be focusing here. So, I'm going to give myself a pass on that one.
Yeah. Fix first and then enhance. And I think his spatial stuff is enhancement. It's the cherry on top. It's the frosting on the cake.
Yeah, most of the time.
But
Most
as
of
we
the time,
say,
that's
sometimes don't frost a cake full of nails.
Did you say nails last time or glass? Was it
I
nails or
think I
glass?
said nails.
Yeah. I mean, either, really.
Glass nails. All right, let's do this break.
That's metal. Yeah. Do you have a guideline or cheat sheet on where you usually want certain elements to pop out frequency wise? No, there's too many different genres, different styles, different artistic visions, too many different goals. Like it's just there's no cheat sheet for that kind of thing. The best cheat sheet that you can use is reference tracks that sound similar to your song. That's the absolute best cheat sheet.
That's your cheat sheet. And then it'll become more instinctual over time. How's the reference track helping? Yeah, it's your guide. You're not lost anymore. You're comparing it to something that's professionally done. It's like a treasure map. You don't have to look, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but you should reference it. You make mixed choices based on that. Yeah, you at least consider it. It's an objective anchor instead of just being up to your own devices. And those devices get worse and worse with time. So your ears are going to start playing tricks on you. You're going to need that objective anchor to come back to and be like, oh man, I started hearing that snare, all sorts of weird. Need to pull that back or whatever.
That's why it's important to take breaks.
Yep, that helps too. Let's do it.
5 minutes on the clock. I'm gonna bring up a timer, not just any timer, my favorite timer. The Goog. Yeah. The Goog. Favorite timer, least favorite alarm. I'm gonna put it full screen. 5 minutes on the clock, guys. Bio break. Go empty yourselves and refill your drinks. Back here in 5. You guys think I was just gonna leave you hanging? Just not gonna come back? And we'll be back after this break. See ya. Any quick questions before we jump back in? Quick questions. We do a few before we start to clean this thing up. Mixing with headphones versus monitors. I don't mix with headphones anymore. I don't even check with headphones anymore. I just mix with monitors. I will say if you don't have like a treated room, like if you haven't tuned your room, it's probably best to, or I shouldn't say best, but like more accurate to use headphones. It's just a different listening experience though, too. You know, you have like with headphones, you have like that, like a lot of separation happening. And with speakers, there's like some overlap. Like your left ear still hears what's going on in the right speaker and vice versa. Like there's crosstalk happening there. So it's just like, I don't know. It's it's kind of situational, I guess. I have an old pair of VXT6s by KRK. They are, I believe they're discontinued. They got, 6-inch woofers, bass ports in the front. And they are not supposed, so this is funny because they're not supposed to be set up like this. I actually have them set up on their sides, and they're designed to be set up on their, like not on their sides, just upright. But after doing like some tests in my room, this gives me the best frequency response in the space. I know it's weird. It's just what it is. There's no best like monitoring headphones. I have opinions on, because I asked what are the best like headphones in your opinion. I haven't tried all the headphones in the world, so I can't tell you like what the best is. I can tell you what I've used and what I would purchase, like if it were me. For like tracking, I like the closed back Bayer Dynamics, the DT 770s. I think they're awesome. The Odyssey LCDXs are the best open back headphone I've ever experienced. But if I hadn't tried those Odyssey ones, I would have gone, probably would have gone for the Bayer Dynamic. I think the open back is like the 990. How would you go about tuning the room? We have a whole curriculum on how to do that. It's not a simple thing. Section 3 flagship program of our reverse engineer program. We work with you to actually get your room tuned up. It's a little bit more complicated than going through it than a quick answer. But basically it's like, let's see, how can I at least like go through the high level steps? You're measuring your room with a microphone and you're making adjustments based on those measurements, just like over and over again. Whether it's positioning adjustments with your speakers and your listening position or your desk, your whole workstation, or it's setting up in the proper spot in your actual room, or adding acoustic treatment in key locations. But the best way to determine what those locations actually are is to do the measurements. And then there's some like mathematical like equations and like calculators that we give you and stuff like that to kind of like go through that whole process. So it is a process, you know, which is why and it can be confusing, which is why we have, you know, mentors, why we mentor that and like guide you through it. Anyway. Will the volumes of my wet reverb tracks be the same as my dry tracks? No, you have total control over how much reverb you add to something. It's totally up to you on how loud or quiet you want the reverb to be. With artists who self-mix and master, is it okay to use previous tracks as references? Yeah, totally. I've used like previous mixes for especially for like albums and things like that, right? So I don't mix or master albums in the same session, but what I do is like I'll mix one song and then use that mix as a reference point for the rest of the mixes on the album. That way there's like at least some kind of if it's important to the artist, there's some kind of cohesiveness, you know, between, you know, from track to track. What does it cost for you to mix 3 songs? If it's truly just mixing, because I usually hop on calls with people, and I think Caleb does this also. Just to get like full clarity on what the goals are, you know, what the desired results are. I check the tracks and things like that. Some people think they need a mix and actually need like editing or like some additional production and stuff like that in order to hit the goals that they set for themselves. But if it is truly just a mix and there isn't like a whole bunch of mixing, like editing and production work and things like that that go along with it, anywhere from 300 to 600 for a single, like per song. On the lower, if the tracks are like tight, like really clean, and they were well recorded, it's on the lower end. If they need a lot of work, you know, on the higher end.
Yeah, and then label work is more obviously from there.
Label work you can double. I don't do work with labels. My business is all like emerging artists and unsigned artists. But
Yeah, 300 to 600 per song. That's what he's saying.
yeah, 300 to 600.
Depending on the workload.
Labels you can double though. Like a label you can charge $1,200. You just double the price because they're gonna ask for a lot more stuff too, and they're gonna have tighter deadlines. They're gonna ask for like more stems. James, I only mix like metal and metalcore these days. I have like one project that is a like alt pop project personally, but my lane is like all hard music, all heavy music. That's what the majority of my business is.
Yeah, Dane and I do more of the pop, alt rock, alt pop, folk.
Yeah, anything particularly genty or like modern metal. I'm into Dillinger Escape Plan, like all that stuff. You know, it's a niche. It's definitely like a niche niche genre for sure.
I mixed some metal recently though. Jake, did I show you that?
No, I would
Yeah.
love to hear it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
Absolutely love to hear it. Send it to me. Last question, then we're gonna move on because we still got quite a bit to do here. Where do you get quality reference tracks? I just download them from Amazon, just high quality MP3s. You know, any of the MP3s that you get off like download from Amazon are good enough for what you
can get waves from them too, right?
what you use them for. Not in my experience. Maybe there's a magical
I thought there
kind of
was
way
a
to
drop
do that.
down where you can, maybe not. Bandcamp has waves though. You don't need to use waves for referencing.
I haven't for years.
It'll change a little bit of the air on the top end, but that's about it.
Yep. But really easy, you know. Just go to Amazon, type in the reference, the song, and then the artist, and it'll pop up. You can download it for $1, and then just like drag it into your referencing or drag it into your DAW, like that. You don't have to overcomplicate it. If you want to do like internal loop back and like record straight from your Spotify or whatever, you can do that too. Totally up to you. I just go to Amazon and I buy the song. It's just way too easy.
I master in Logic. Done, Ellie. There's no difference. Doesn't matter what you use.
Anyway. Yeah, don't rip it from YouTube. It's like YouTube crunches it too much, I would say.
Plus,
Yeah,
it just takes too long. No one has time for that.
Yeah, it takes a while, and it's just the quality isn't quite there. My experience again.
Speed.
Just my
Speed
opinion.
is the game.
Yeah, it's really about speed. But all right, let's jump in here, guys. You guys ready to get going again? We got to clean up this mid-range. I think that's going to put us in a really good spot. Yep, ones. Sick. And are we having fun? Like, are we having fun doing this? I hope you're learning and having fun. And starting to meet people too. You know what I mean? Like, you should be starting to meet people, maybe in the community, or maybe even having like a little bit of banter in the chat section, you know, maybe cracking some jokes, connecting on some things, you know?
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, man. That's the point. Like, if you're not having fun, like, what's the point? So, cool. Good. Let's get on with it. Let's start right here. What did we talk about yesterday, guys? I told you I was going to show you what splitting the bass meant, right? The Moog. I think it's pronounced Moog. All right. I want control over the high frequencies, like high frequencies versus low frequencies of this bass here. And we're going to actually take a look at everything that's sitting in the low end. We got a lot of low end elements to kind of like manage. We've got a drum loop, we've got an 808, we've got a sub, and we've got this Moog. So, you know, what the heck are we going to do here? First thing I'm going to do is just kind of check the keys bus to see how much low end is actually overlapping. We've got some content here, right? So I'm just going to do just like big move and filter all that out right on the bus. So none of that's really kind of coming through. You should hear a difference there. You should hear the difference in like the rumble and like the sub frequencies, right? Hear that? Somebody says that the stream is lagging for you. Stream lagging for anybody else right now?
That's usually an individual basis type thing.
Yeah.
But I
Sometimes
want to mention, remember yesterday we saw a bunch of buildup around 40, 50. This is just helping take care of that. We probably want one thing taking care of that range down there, not two things.
And we've got 4.
We have 4 things right now. So let's clean that up.
Very least, we've kind of eliminated this competition here from all of anything in the keys. check the guitars. See how much I can get away with there without like dipping into the tone, right? Cool. Awesome. Awesome possum. So now what do we have to worry about in terms of the low end elements, right? Kick drum, 808, sub, and the Moog. Split the Moog. We're gonna start there. We've got low end happening right in the center. This is the Moog on the left. It's a sub on the right.
Just clicky crossfades.
Hmm.
All those clicky crossfades.
Gotta be honest, man. Like there's plenty of scenarios where I'm working with like distorted guitars. I don't even crossfade stuff. What's the point?
But you
Yeah,
can just hear that. You can hear these clicks in here. It's like
Yeah.
an easy fix. It's kind of funny. You can hear them.
But can you? Can you hear them on the headphones?
It's on the sub, I think.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying though. In context, can you hear them on the headphones?
No, but I'm OCD. You gotta fix it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh yeah, I hear him clear as day, bro.
Everything's sitting in the same spot. So I'm gonna start from like the way low lows. And what we probably don't need the most in terms of low end is the Moog. So I'm gonna start by rolling that up. So cleaning up the kick here and bringing in some more room for the sub. I just pushed it up a little bit more. Let's see. What do I want to do here? 808. Let's see what this 808 is contributing. So in terms of like the long note that's being held out on the 808, it's the same as the sub. See what we can actually get away with here.
Do they always play at the same time? The 808 and the sub bass?
They do. Yeah, they totally do. Yeah, that's a good thought, right? Because if we were in production, you can make the you wouldn't necessarily have to have these hitting at the same time, right? So we're in a position now where we can carve this out. We can mute it completely. We can mute like the sub just in that one spot.
Well, what do
can
we
slide
what do we like about each? The sub is giving that low end. They're totally filling the exact same space, but with the 808, what do we want from that? We want like it's a percussive thing. We actually want it to like be a momentary hit. So we don't need all that low end. We just need that hit part of it to peek through the mix a little bit and give it like that punch for a second.
the impact.
The rest of it we could just cut out because it's literally being played by the sub. You won't even hear it. It'll just muddy it up.
Yeah, so it's like, what do? Do you hand it off from one to the other? Or do you just prioritize that hit, like you said? Where's the hit? Right there. Be enough.
Yeah, if you add the sub back into it, you'll hear that it's. Y'all hear that?
Or you get a little bit of that. You get a little bit of that grunge and that dirt and that grit from the 808, but the sub is handling the actual tonal low frequency content. That's what Caleb's saying.
When it's on its own, the 808 was sounding like not good when we rolled it all off. You're like, oh, all the low end's gone. But when you put the sub in there, you realize it's already playing those frequencies.
Get a little bit of that rattle, right, from the 808.
Yeah, that's the part you want.
Now we're cleaning up all that low end. Get all that space now for the bass to just like come through there.
Yeah, you could even saturate that 808 now with the bars. So it pops through.
Let's move that Moog out to the sides first, right? So like create that separation with the
Then
high
we'll hear
end,
it,
because
yeah.
right now there's competition between the mid-range of the Moog and the mid-range of the 808.
That's right.
And if we can create that separation with left to right stereo field, we might not need to add any distortion or saturation as a fixing thing. We could certainly still add some as an
It's
enhancement.
an enhancement thing, yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
That's why he's going to split them. Yeah, the lows should stay center. Everything like super tight center if you want that tight bass sound. So that's why he's going to split the Moog out and send only the high parts of the Moog to the side and have the low part of the Moog stay to the center.
Yeah, so check this out. Which actually I might not need to do now, since Took everything out of it. Took all the lows out.
Yeah, I guess you don't need them.
You know, I don't need to split it. Let's see what it sounds like without it split. And what if I just
Good
put a
point.
snap?
Good point. That was what he was thinking of yesterday, but he just found he can take all the lows out anyway because the sub bass is filling it in, and he'll just send the highs that's left over to the sides.
Context. Way nicer. Way nicer.
So you know, it wasn't that hard.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying it wasn't that hard to clean up the low, and everyone thinks it's a mystery. You just have to think this way about it.
Right. Yeah. Think about what are the qualities that are most important? What's contributing to the track in what way? You know, and make musical decisions about your engineering moves. Totally. So with this Moog, what I'm getting right now is like a little bit of instability when I want more consistency from this track. I'm hearing it go. Sometimes it pokes out of the mix. Sometimes it dips back into the mix and we lose that brightness in the sides, right? When I think it probably needs a little bit more consistency. And we can even see what's going on here. You know, we can see it decrescendoing here and then crescendoing back up and then decrescendoing again. And then there's a hit here. And then it's kind of like in and out. I want this to be a little bit more stable. So what I'm going to do is before the sample delay, I'm just going to add a limiter. And just pegged it. I mean, look at the meter. Look how much this is jumping around. I don't need that. Really going to slam it. Do you hear and see the difference here? Check it out. Check out this meter right here. See how much this meter is kind of like jumping up and down, kind of dancing around a little bit, right? Then I add some limiting. Take a look and use your ears. Completely pegged. Solid, consistent volume all the way through. Right? So this isn't going to be poking out through the mix. It's not going to be buried in the mix anymore. Now it's just going to be this nice, consistent, just buzzsaw kind of sound happening in the sides. That's gonna, there's some like chorusing or detuning happening with this too. So there's going to be this sense of width that happens in this section as well, right? Really cool. And some movement, side to side movement, without it being kind of fluctuating in terms of depth, you know, in and out of the mix. So
yep.
Check it. boom. And then when it drops out, there's that element of contrast that happens when this acoustic guitar comes in too, right? Like all that high end, that buzziness, like that buzzsaw feeling that happens in the sides. It's just like, oh, we take it away and there's something missing, but it's like exciting at the same time because there's contrast in the next section, right? Yeah, release. Exactly, Jody. Release. Want to do an A/B on just like all the low end moves we just did? Here we go.
That's magic.
Yeah, clarity, right? Separation, stability, a little bit more balanced now, decluttering the center, right? By spreading that buzzsaw to the sides. Each element you can kind of like pick out a little bit cleaner and clearer and more accurately. It's more focused. This is what people mean when they say tighter low end, like tighten up the low end. This is what they mean, right? Really mean range allocation, allocating specific things in the low end to live in their own areas, right? Small moves here, guys. Like there's no magic here. It's like I'm using a stock EQ, a free limiter, and a stock sample delay to make all this happen. That's not like any special plugins are being used here. It's just a little bit of it's a little bit of thought in terms of like the music and how the pieces all kind of fit together. That's awesome, Tony. Give me a better understanding of like 10 things in an hour. That's sweet. Y'all should have a tip jar. I'll send you a Venmo request.
No, just give us a shout out.
Yeah, just hit us up on socials or something like that, guys. If this was helpful, if you turned on some light bulbs for you, and like ultimately, like most importantly, just make some great music. Like that's most important. Like if you do nothing but create amazing music using the things that you've learned here and using some of the like light bulb moments and aha moments, like share that with the world. Just share more good music with the world, right? Anyway, get me all gooey. That's low end. I know I said we were going to clean up that 200 to 500 kind of like spot. But I feel like that low end was kind of like took the priority there. Let's take a listen. What happens when we bring the vocal in there?
Always knows the blues and true, but it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises.
Yeah. So now let's remove the vocal. Notice what happens to this area right here when we remove the vocal. Okay, notice, like, take a look at the Paz analyzer. Just kind of burn this into your memory right now. I'm going to reset this, but
Send
right
about
now,
30.
yeah, right. So like right about here, right? What is this? -28. minus 28 right now with the vocal. Let's clear it. I'm going to say, I'm going to write it here because I won't even remember. That's how bad my memory is. Now we'll mute it, listen to the track, pay attention to that area.
So is there a problem in the instrumentals with that range? The answer is no. That's right. It's in the vocal. It's not in the instrumental.
It's always been in the vocal, which is actually, it's a little bit surprising to me. Because if we just take a look at what we got going on, my first thought was like, wow, we have a ton of tracks here in the keys. Like we've got a lot of strings, we've got a lot of pads, you know, we've got a lot of instruments sitting in like kind of like this broad band of like basically from here 100 all the way up like to 2K, like right in this area, right? So my first thought was like, oh man, we got to tack a lot of these instruments today. You know, we got to clear up that 250 to 500 hertz area because of all these instruments, right? Then we mute the vocals and find that it's actually not the instruments at all.
The low end was a much bigger problem. If you remember yesterday, the Paz was showing a huge Mount Everest spike at 30 hertz. Look at it now. It's gone.
Right. And it could be, I mean, couldn't it be, that's a good point, Casper. Couldn't it be that there is no room for the vocals, not that the vocals is the issue itself? Yeah, it could be. We're just going to have to kind of like play that game tomorrow when we get to vocals, right? We're going to have to play the game of how much of that range is important to us in the vocal.
It's usually not that important in the vocal, honestly. If you look at a lot of like vocals in this style, they're super rolled off.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as an instrumental though, this sounds like to me, just like instinctually without taking a listen to the reference or anything like that, it sounds pretty solid.
Listen to the vocals with the Paz just soloed. Just
Soloed,
the vocals soloed.
Yeah, you'll see this. Good call.
Forest knows the blues some true, but it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. We know it's gonna be peace with fighting. Oh, told the time of war and healing, but Lord, we just might have touched the ceiling. Forest knows the blues some true, but it keeps me wondering.
We can physically see the imbalance happening. There it is. 250 to 500.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, those are not that important to this vocal. When everything else is in there and the vocal's sitting with everything else, you won't hear probably much of a difference. When we carve a chunk of that out, you probably won't even notice. And yet you'll be saving all that masking.
Cool. Cool little discovery we made together today, right, guys?
That was kind of fun. Hey, can we play with one more little thing?
Is it an enhancement thing?
It is.
Let's take a break.
Are you reading my mind?
Let's take a break.
How much more are you doing today?
I figured like,
I thought you were done. Sorry.
can I guess?
Yeah.
Can I guess? I
Yeah.
figured we had some saturation on that 808
There you go.
and and do a little group processing, just like kind of like typical kind of enhancement things. Maybe talk a little bit about saturation today, if that's
Y'all want to see that? All right. Let's do a quick 5 then and do that, and then
yeah, cool.
I'll give you a couple last little things on mastering as well. And
Yeah,
then we'll be done. So
cool.
let's do it.
Sweet.
You guys in a few.
Yeah, I'll bring up a timer again. Not just any timer. But my favorite timer. As a matter of fact. It's the Goog! Ha! I didn't see that coming. 5 minutes on the clock, guys. Starting that bad boy. Full screen. I think it's pronounced Gog. Ooh. Any quick questions, guys? Any questions I can answer for you before we hop back in here? Jake, are all of your effects buses being routed to the wet effects bus? Yes, they are. Just an organizational thing, Jedediah. I used to dabble in every genre, Rob. Not so much anymore. Last year, I niched down to just modern metal, modern rock. Not much compression done here. Yeah, none at all. None at all. Very few plugins actually used. I mean, on this track, we still have a few more to, you know, we have a few more processes that we want to experiment with. But dude, like, check this out. You just pull up the mix window. Look at this. Like, pretty clean. Not a lot of processing going on.
Volume's the most powerful tool. If you do that part right, you don't need a ton most of the time.
Yeah. To be fair, we haven't done like a listen through of the entire song either.
There'll probably be some more, but this happens every time.
Yeah. Certainly does. Do you duck the kick? Sometimes. Depends on if the artist wants like a pumpy kind of sound. You know, like if we're going for like a heavy, like future bass thing, then yeah, I'm probably, I mean, not duck the kick, but duck the bass for the kick, right? Or duck other things for the kick, sidechain the kick to a bunch of other stuff, right? If we want that kind of like pumpy kind of effect. We can do it in an exaggerated way. You can do it in a subtle way. Totally up to you how you want to do that. Will this recording be available before tomorrow's session? As long as things go
Yeah.
well.
The
Yeah.
recording was out within like 2 hours yesterday. The recording of day one was out within like 2 hours, I believe.
Yeah. What are you listening for in the kick bass relationship? Clarity. Separation.
Separation.
Yeah. Clarity, separation between each instrument. Can I hear each instrument like clearly, basically? Or are they stepping on top of each other? And is it kind of like hard to differentiate one over the other?
We already got the new guitar tracks. They're already in there.
This is a great question. I usually already use reverbs and compressors in the production stage. Should I avoid this?
No.
No. No. Do whatever you have to do to design your sounds in production and recording.
Yeah, and don't use the buckets method in the production session. Just bake them in. It's a sound design choice.
Yeah.
At that point. And then when I usually, back when I used to not mix my own stuff, I would send a wet and a clean version of all the tracks to the mix engineer, and he or she would mostly use the wet. But if they had a problem that they couldn't solve, they would reach into the dry stuff and solve it, and it was no big deal. I love when someone sends me a mix that has both.
Rube sent me both.
Cool.
Yeah, he sent me both.
And you've mostly used the wet, right?
This is all wet. I mean, there's stuff baked into all of these.
The only
right?
thing I don't use wet usually is the vocal, at least in terms of reverbs and delays.
Yeah.
But I'll use, like, if they bake in auto tune or like doubling or something like that. If they have a style, that's production. They're going for a specific style with the produced vocal, so I'll honor that unless it's just way out of bounds, then I'll talk to him about it. But I'll honor that, and then usually do my own reverbs and delays on the vocal.
Yeah. When I'm producing a track, like if I'm touching the production part of the track, it's pretty common for the production to sound like mixed for me, because I'm just designing the sounds and making all those kind of moves really pretty instinctually during production. And then it becomes a mix for me if I have my hands in it from the top. It's typically like, okay, do I have enough? What's the low end like? I'm managing the low end. I'm adding wet effects to vocals and maybe oogieing some things very, very slightly. Maybe taking care of some resonance problems or doing some automation on vocals to make sure every word is heard like super clearly and every consonant is heard super clearly. There's no question about what the lyrics are. And then maybe adding some high end or something like that, right? But that's just me, that's it. If I've got my hands in the production part of the process, right? And I work differently than other people work. So keep all that in mind too. But I think regardless, it's a good kind of rule of thumb to get the production 80% of the way to its final form, right? Like after production, your song should sound 80% of the way to the final sound. I think that's a good, just kind of like way to approach it. What would you do if a client gives you a weak kick with the mix? Would you send it back or try to shape it on your own? No, I'd probably just replace it with something based on their references and what they're going for. I'd just replace it. For live drums, mic through the interface, mic the kick separately. There's going to be overtones of both. Each of the two mics. How are you micing the drums, Cat? Just two mics? Like one for the kick and what? One for the snare or like an overhead or something? Depends on how you're micing stuff. I wouldn't really even attempt to mic drums with less than 4 mics. Just my personal opinion. If you have you only have a single overhead, I mean, then you just don't have the width, right? Where would the 4 be? Pair of overheads, kick, snare. Top, snare top. Kick in. Inside the kick, inside the head.
There's some indie styles that use mono overhead, but it's a very niche move. It's not going to work for most stuff.
Two overhead, kick, snare. Minimum. It's not impossible to record drum in a living room. You can record them, like, as long as you get a good overhead image, you can just replace all the shells in the box and get like a pretty solid recording. Final sound, I should say. But even so, if you know what you're doing, you can get a great sound in a living room. Totally. Doesn't matter. Just gotta dial in those recording chops.
Sounds good is good. Lean into it. Let's do this. Rock and roll.
Yeah, I think so. We got a bunch of other questions, guys. I want to be able to answer all the questions. Still got a little bit more to go. If we have time at the end, we'll open up again and we'll just continue to do this like rapid fire kind of thing. Yeah, you want to start with that 808?
Yeah, I would love for it to be like a little moment of energy when it comes in. Subtle, not too much, but right now it's not really biting through very much.
What do you want to use?
Your choice.
What I got in saturation? I've got Neve stuff we can drive. I've got API stuff we can drive. I've
Use
got
the stock fat effects in Logic.
I've got the decapitator. I've got my slate stuff. Up to you. You want to do the stock Logic? You can
Why
do that.
not? Use the fat fat.
Can we use distortion too? You want to use fat?
Use the fat.
You can use fat if you want. So Logic has a bunch of options for saturation. I never really, for a long time, I didn't realize how many options there actually are in Logic for saturation. There's a ton. There's truly a ton. There's an overdrive now. There's distortion 2, some bit crushing things, blah, 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 blah. Right. And there's also
Fat effects is a gem.
fat effects.
The old Camel Crusher, if you don't know, it's a 1-to-1 recreation of the Camel Crusher that people used forever.
And it's in this module right here, this distortion module. So we're going to turn everything else off and just use this distortion module right here inside of the fat effects plugin.
You're on the wrong track, though.
I'm on the wrong track.
You're on the Moog bass. We're talking about the 808.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, bro. You're just showing us.
This is just for demonstration purposes.
Logic was so nice. They literally converted every instance of Camel Crusher on all my sessions into the fat effects when they updated it, and they lost support for Camel Crusher. Any instance of it, they automatically converted to the same settings within fat effects.
Because everybody was using it.
Yeah, it's so cool. That was so cool of them.
Ooh. You want to try? You have anything in mind?
Nah.
No, just kind of flip through.
Yeah, do your thing.
I'm not doing that. I'm just do this. I mean, that already sounds dope. Let's get it in context though. Because really that's what we're looking for.
Just
right?
want a little bit of it's just like a rhythmic moment almost.
I'm gonna put it on 50% for now. You know what? I might just kind of like crank this. See. Diode's already cool. I'm actually gonna go like over here. This is gonna get annoying, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Let's bring it a little bit tighter. Tighter in here. That's what we're gonna be hearing over and over again. Just giving you guys a heads up as I flip through these different kind of like types. And I'm going to be listening for just, I don't know, just like some texture. What kind of pops through the mix the most? You know, what makes me feel good? See. going to be crap. Yeah, so it's diode or tube for me.
Yeah, I like both of those.
I'm going to crank this. I'm going to pick tube because it has less low end frequency content attached to it. That is not what we want. We don't want more low end frequency content because we have the sub filling that space. Right now, it's about just adding a little bit of grit, a little bit of character to the mid range, right? So we don't need to pile on any more low end. That's what the diode is doing. So we're going to stick to tube. Without.
Cool.
Like it. Adding a little bit of gain to that too. Which I actually don't mind. We 1-to-1 it. Yeah, real nice. Dirty.
It's cool.
Dirty, dirty, dirty.
A little bit, Daniel. That's why he picked the tube one, because it's less. You could put another EQ after it, though, if you were worried about it.
Yeah, I can toss this. I can just change the positioning of those.
The other way to handle this whole problem, by the way, if you really wanted someone that wanted less emphasis on the sub bass and more on the 808, and that was really important to them, is you could sidechain the 808 to the sub bass so that the sub bass ducks out when the 808 hits. It's another way to go about it if you wanted to. It just depends on
how much processing. Yeah, how much processing power you have too. Like typically, like the difference in processing power between like sidechaining something and like EQing something, there's going to be a little bit more with the sidechain function because it's not static, right? It's kind of it's a dynamic move, but it's really doesn't matter. It's
sometimes 808s have this thing where they're going pew, you know, and if they really wanted that like that walk down,
yeah,
and that
that's
was important to it.
Yeah,
and we would take off the cut we did, sidechain it to the sub bass, and then it'll duck it out so there's not a buildup there, and then you get that slide. I don't think it's that important here though.
cool. I like it.
It's cool. I could go even more, but I like it.
Yeah, you want to fatten it up?
I'm just
called fat effects for a reason.
When he went to 100, I was like, all right.
Oh yeah. Does kind of flatten it out, but I'm fine with it.
That's cool. It's
Yeah.
cool to me, but either way, this is all just fun.
Keep it. Let's keep it. Why not? You know, these are enhancement kind of things, guys. So like it gets to be a little bit more about taste and opinion and subjectivity. If you're the one in charge. If you're not the one in charge, and there are some non-negotiable requests from the artist, it's more about that and following the reference tracks. Right. Anyway, there's that. I don't have a Pro Q3, Nick. Might be able to see it here though. I'm a contrarian when it comes to Pro Q3. Like you can clearly see the harmonic content that's being added there, right? Here it is clean. Is the 808 clean? Burn that image into your memory. Watch how much, like, watch this thing turn into a porcupine. Look at that. Just straight Spinosaurus. Just right up.
What a Saurus?
Spinosaurus. You know
Yeah, of
Spinosaurus?
course.
Everybody knows a Spinosaurus. It's got the big flap on its back.
Ah,
Guys seeing that? Actually adding harmonic content. Whoa. Crazy. All right. I'm cool with that. Look at that. Listen to that cool depth. That's dirty. All right. These shakers got to go out. I think this is my favorite plugin. Spread those shakers out to the sides. The difference there? I like sample delay. Somebody asked why sample delay instead of panning. I like sample delay because it's great for just turning a mono sound into a stereo sound. Right? So it creates like this sense of width and balance on the left and the right side. So if you want that sound to just happen in a balanced way, both in the left and right speaker, awesome. Use a sample delay. If you just kind of want to lean an instrument from one side to the other without having, it also play on the other side, then just pan it. That's the difference. I mean, we could pan this. Right. And I still think that's interesting. It's still an interesting, yeah, it's kind of like a center kill. Exactly. Yeah, you can think of it like that. You can think of it like that. It's on the side. Here it is with a sample delay. Right? I don't know. Sometimes I pan things, sometimes I stereo delay it. Delay it. It's more obvious. I think the sample delay is a little bit more obvious to the ear. Whereas if you wanted to take a more subtle approach, just a straight pan one side or the other. But again, this is an enhancement thing. Just decluttering the center. An opinion. You use Ableton, so you need a comparable plugin. Any stereo delay will work.
Yep.
Any
There's got
delay.
a million free ones out there.
Yeah, any delay, and Ableton has one. It's any delay that you can control the left and right channels independently. When does automation come into play? We already did. I think we did some automation, didn't we? The other day. Yesterday we did some automation. You're gonna see much more automation when it comes to vocal day. We're gonna do a ton on that day. Everything's pretty sitting pretty well right now. I just want to listen to the rest of the song, see if there's any kind of final adjustments to be made. Yeah, love that acoustic guitar. Just this last note is out of control. Right, we got that just kind of like that slamming. Really pulled that one, Matt. Both of them. I actually might even just cut that off completely. Don't need it. Like the kick comes in there. Plenty of saw some reverb on that piano. Just like thinking a long reverb. Do some work. Copy over that EQ. Some pre-delay. We'll just tone it down a little bit. little bit too much buildup in there.
I like the look.
Let's give that piano some dimension. You know what I mean? Somebody mentioned the piano gets lost when everything kicks back in. I think I'm okay with that. Simply because the vocals are just gonna take over there. Then it just kind of becomes a part of the texture. Right? Not really gonna be focusing on the piano. Yeah, the break is where it matters the most for sure. And if we did want it to stand out a little bit more, I would just volume automate down maybe some of the other stuff that we've heard before. You could do something like that. Cool.
Remember how it sounded the first day? It's a nice facelift. Really good stuff. Much better.
Is
Starting to sound really cool.
more little enhancement move, maybe. I'm just gonna throw these through, basically do like some summing.
Tape.
Just console.
Yeah, show them this stuff. This is really cool. A lot of people don't do this stuff.
I'm just gonna add some saturation through some console emulation. This tends to do is adds kind of like it adds some harmonic content. It adds some imperfections to the signal, which can create some warmth. It can create some openness in the high end. Just kind of pleasing to listen to. And I'm not going to go wackadoo with this kind of stuff. I'm just going to push it through an SSL E-Desk. I'm going to up the drive a little bit. I'm going to turn off the noise reduction and just see what it does. You know, I'm just going to take this and copy it over to each of the instrument buses. First, listen to the difference on the drums. Not, dude, like it's
Cool, man.
just a touch of excitement. That's the best way I can kind of like put it. There's a little bit more kind of like depth happening here.
Life too. It's just fairy dust, man.
Yeah, it's really such a small move, right? But it makes a difference.
Adds up.
We can hear what it does to the bass. We're gonna use the same exact setup. And you can get as complex with this kind of process as you want. You can experiment with like different types of saturation. You can experiment with preamps and virtual tape machine kind of emulation. This specifically is console emulation. You can use all kinds of saturators. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be analog emulation. It can just be like any kind of saturation, like just subtle, tiny little amounts like that.
Yep.
Will introduce more harmonic content and just have a different character and different effect on the sound. Right.
Little
I like
moves,
to
lots of
see,
little moves.
yeah, totally. I'm not even gonna listen. Honestly, I'm just gonna listen to the mix as a whole, and I'm gonna turn this console emulation just on and off. You'll get a feel for what this sounds like. Guys hearing that? It's subtle. If you're not used to hearing saturation, this can take some time to really kind of like to get, you know, take some time to get.
Subtle. It's life, it's depth, it's separation. Very cool.
Yeah, for me, it's for me the biggest kind of thing is like the depth. You know, it seems to create take the mix and just kind of like stretch it out like across the depth dimension a little bit more and across the height dimension a little bit more. Right? Some airiness to it. It's wacky. It's wild. It's fascinating. It's fun.
Instrumentals are sounding really good to me. I'm really excited for tomorrow because there's actually a lot we can do with the vocal. It's going to be quite a transformation.
Yeah, totally.
Pretty stoked on that. Let me go over one little thing with y'all. This is another mastering tool you can use. And a lot of what we've talked about, it's been mentioned several times today, but a lot of what we're doing is saving sonic space. We're saving sonic energy. We're saving dynamic energy. We're controlling those a lot because there's a finite amount that can exist within a song. And a lot of times when you get a song as a mastering engineer, when it's either not balanced in terms of frequencies, but also even dynamically can make it so that you can't do as much with it in a master. You can't push it as far, as loud, with as much clarity. And so another tool you can use on your mix bus is something that assesses dynamics. If you don't know what dynamics are, it's just the range from the base of the waveform to the tip. So you have these transients as compared to the average levels. That's your kind of dynamic range. And one misconception I hear a lot is people say, oh, I want my mix or master to sound really dynamic. I don't think that's what they mean. Something that sounds really dynamic might not sound very good necessarily. A lot of what we're doing in mixing and mastering is actually controlling the dynamic range. We want it to sound big and fat. And I think that's what most people mean when they say, I want things to have a lot of dynamics. They want it to sound big and fat and punch hard. But that's having big dynamic peaks and transients compared to the bass is not how you do that. How you do that is through controlling dynamics. So let's talk
Yeah, I
about,
think just to kind of like if I can add to that
please.
very quickly. I think what people mostly mean when they say I want my track to be dynamic is, for me, what that translates it is impact between song sections,
Yep.
right? It means impact, and it means intensity and contrast between sections. It means the loud sections, the choruses, the climaxes of the song are huge. And the part before it is not as huge. Right.
Yeah.
And you can do that with more ways than just volume. You can do that with intensity in the performance, velocity of your MIDI, stripping away specific elements, stripping away strategically high end elements or low end elements to create that contrast. So that's just like a note of kind of like translating engineering speak or artistic speak and creative speak into engineering speak, and how to kind of like meet on that and get in alignment with your clients or artists on that kind of language.
That's right. We didn't do a ton of it today. The one moment where we did some of this, and we didn't even really point it out, and we maybe should have, was on the Moog bass. Jake used a limiter to even that out. But in the process of doing so, if you had watched the DBFS meter, that fluctuation that was happening was taking up space that was not only undesirable to our ear, we wanted it to be more level, but it was also just wasting space. And you can use clippers and limiters with kicks and snares and bass and lots of different instruments to where you can limit or clip them a little bit and save 2 or 3, 4, 5 dB of space, but it won't change the way it sounds. It still sounds like a good kick or a good snare. You're just taming transient information. If I got, for example, a mix from somebody to master that looked like this would be very hard to master. You'd have to do a lot of work. Way more work than you want to do in mastering. It's not going to end up being a great product because you can see there's these huge transient spikes all throughout it. It's not ideal. The problem is within the mix, you don't get to see what the mastering engineer sees with this waveform. You just kind of send that off. But you need to be aware of these. And so we've actually found a plugin that's really cool where you can actually look at your transient information in your mix bus. Jake, do you want to show them that? And this could be just something you keep your eye on, right? So that you're not sending stuff off that's not dynamically controlled and wasting space.
Goats my goats. We can use this handy dandy little tool called the Wave Observer.
It's free, right?
It's free by a company called Press Play. Guys, write that down. If you want to grab this, you can. Press Play. Wave Observer. Observer. Don't Google search Wave Observer.
Throw a V in there and you got it.
They're right next to each other on the keyboard, so you can see how I get confused.
There are some PAS alternatives as well, but PAS it's $29, so might be easier to follow along with that one.
So let me show you Wave Observer. What a great example this is.
Yep.
You guys seeing this? What are those big transients there?
What's causing them? Yep.
Exactly.
We might just get a demonstration of what I was just talking about right now. Saving space. The kick is going to sound, when we're done with this, the kick is going to sound exactly the same, and yet you won't see those spikes as much. Do it, Jake.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Go to that drum loop. Wait. Before we close this down, where are we sitting here? At minus
9.
9, right?
9. Yep.
These peaks are pretty consistently.
Some are over 9. That last one is like probably 8.
Go. Now I'm going to add a clipper to this, save some headroom. I like to use this one for demonstrations because it's just really easy to understand how clipping actually works. Check this out. See in this little window here, it shows you all the transients. And basically what we do here is bring down the ceiling on the clipper and chop off the top of those transients. So anything above this line, above this ceiling, is actually being chopped off. Signal's just being cut, right?
No, we are not mastering. You would want to do this before the master.
Oh yeah, this is all in
This
mix.
is only affecting the kick right now. And it's on a drum loop, but the kick's the only thing that's hitting that hard. So this is only affecting the kick alone right now.
Yeah, Jedediah. That clicked for you? That's awesome. Yeah. So check it out. All right. So we've clipped it. Not really an audible difference happening here, right? Let's take a look and see what kind of difference this makes on the meter. That drum loop, that kick, causing it to peak up at -7, right? -7 decibels. Now when we add the clipper, saving 2, almost 3 decibels of headroom there. Right. Now you do have to be careful.
It's not changing the sound.
No.
There's an imperceptible change in sound.
Right. This is especially good on like transient heavy drums, you know, kicks, snares, percussion stuff, you know, that you want to kind of maintain the punch of. Clipping is kind of an abrasive kind of process. It does do all of this through saturation and like distortion and stuff, right? So if you push it too hard, it'll sound really, really distorted, but it's great for transient heavy stuff. And if we take a look at Wave Observer now, remember we were at what, -9?
Yep, even
Look.
up into 8.
Look at that. There's our 2, almost 3 decibel difference.
I promise you, your mastering engineer would thank you from the bottom of their heart. No perceptible change in the kick sound or volume even. Its perceived volume is exactly the same, and yet we've saved that amount of sonic energy that we can now use in the master to push the song to be louder and more punchy.
Yeah, I'm seeing some chatter too, guys. Like, if you push this too hard, listen to what happens. It'll just create audible distortion. Right? So usually I just push it as far as I can, as much as I can without
Really
distortion.
changing the sound, yeah.
Like this is like pretty extreme for me. I think it just clips a little bit too much. It starts to soak up the low end. See, still soaking up the low end there. So I think about 2.5 for this track was sounding pretty good.
Yeah, Leonard, a lot of kicks have a little bit of distortion on the top end anyway. I actually kind of like what clippers do to the top ends of kicks and snares sometimes, because I want that harmonic energy to help it cut through. It's a good thing.
Clip it in production. If you want that You know, if you want that energy and like you like the sound of clipping when it comes to like a sound design kind of approach, use it in production. You know, be a great way to just kill a bunch of birds with one stone.
Clipping and limiting are very similar. Limiting just has a little bit more give, whereas clipping is literally chopping the transient.
Yeah, limiting just turns it down, like squishes it. Clipping just chops it off.
Very similar though. Limiter is going to introduce less distortion sooner.
You're like that slight edge on the kick kind of adds like a little bit of extra attack on the kick. You know, like it's up to you to decide whether or not that's too much or you like it like that, right? It's audible. I'm kind of like happy right at this like 2.5 mark. I want to do another layer just for giggles. I'll add a clipper to the bus, drum bus. No audible difference there. I'm just clipping like a little bit more. Now we're saving about 5 decibels of headroom total
It's
on
crazy.
the drums. If we take a look at Wave Observer, still nice and punchy, right? Sitting even further below that
It's cool, man.
-12 line, right? Control, all about control, right? And now when you get into mastering, you've got lots of room to push that master really, really loud, right? I said it before, I'll say it again. Loudness potential starts in the mix.
100%.
This is what we're talking about. Talking about proper distribution, distribution and balancing of frequencies and dynamic control.
That's right. 100%. It's all those little things. They add up to a lot in the master, but unless you have that perspective, you don't really think about that stuff, but you should.
Making sense, guys? Clicking? Guys still with us? Some light bulb moments?
I was just curious if Jim Cook is in the chat today. Jim, are you here today?
I think it's his call time.
What was it? Jim, one of our students, I wondered if he was here. I wanted to give him a shout out. He just won a big mixing contest.
Oh, did he confirm?
Yep.
Sweet.
Super cool. Shout out to Jim. You're not here, but it's super cool, man.
It was I think it was a composition.
It was
contact.
mixing. No, it was mixing.
It was mixing? No way. Cool, man.
Mixing.
All right.
All right. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, go in and do all this stuff, fix any remaining issues with instruments in terms of frequencies. You can enhance where necessary using either EQ or saturation, fix dynamic issues using dynamics processing tools, whether compressors, limiters, or clippers. You got a little bit more insight on all those today. And try the buckets method. Add some spatial processing where necessary. Be very intentional with it all. I'm pretty stoked about tomorrow. It's going to be really fun. Hope you all have a chance to come back and check it out. Should be a fun day with the vocals. It's gonna really polish this song off and make it just pop. It's gonna be super cool.
Bring it together.
Much love to all of you. Have a great evening. Thanks, Jake, for a great session. Thanks for everyone being cool in chat, asking great questions, helping each other. Until tomorrow, be safe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.